Operator, well, could you help me place this call?
Hello there and welcome back to another fountain pen related video. My name is Doug and I'm rather surprised today on a Friday to receive this package. I didn't expect it till next week, so it's always nice when something comes earlier than you expected. This fountain pen I found on eBay, and it's a Jinhao, and the only marking on it is Jinhao 01. I can't find any other information on it, so I don't know whether that's the model number or what. But the package has just arrived in bubble pack from China, and I'm going to open it up. And of course, as always, we'll speed this up. Oh, look at this. 25 to 75% off our pens in Amazon. I didn't buy this on Amazon. Thank you for your purchase. Well, that looks interesting. We'll have to see if I can put that to work. And continuing. And here we have the pen. It's a lot more orange than I expected, but what struck me about this pen was that it looked very much like the Parker Duofold Classic Big Red. So I've been doing a little bit of research on the Classic Duofold Big Red, its history and so forth. So I'm going to insert a little bit of information here on this video about that. You can skip through it to get to the writing samples and so forth and my evaluation. But I'm interested in that kind of thing, so I'm going to insert it. But first, let's look at this pen. It's as heavy as I expected from what I think is a metal-bodied, enamel-lacquered Chinese fountain pen. But it's a good size, and I don't own a Parker Duofold, but I expect it's going to shape up to at least one of the junior sizes. We'll see when we do our measurements. It has a black finial, plain black, a nice ball end clip, very stiff, a single gold band, a slightly bulbous cap, and what looks like a very small taper to a fake blind cap with no markings. There's nothing on the clip even to indicate what this is. This is a, well, maybe it's not. Nope, it is a screw thread, and that feels weird. It's like it doesn't fit. Okay, there's a cap liner in there. And plastic threads and metal threads on the body. So plastic section. It seems to be scuffed a little bit. But a concave section. Let's look at the nib here. My first look, there's no markings on it whatsoever. So this is a generic Jinhao. It said Jinhao on the auction. I'll put the details of it up here so you can see what I paid for it. It's not expensive, so I don't expect much. But that's a nice two-tone nib. It looks like a medium to me. And that feels like metal on metal, but it's metal on plastic. I might be wrong about that. Nope. I think that section is metal. Black lacquered metal. That's why it feels like metal on metal, because it is. So it looks like a brass body. This is interesting too. What's this on the end of the converter? Let's pull that converter out and see. Well, maybe it operates inside the blind cap. Nope, it does not. Thought maybe they incorporated the blind cap into the filling mechanism. Well, that's odd. Maybe. I think I know what this is. Maybe that sets into the base to keep it from rattling, because one of the things about converter pens is when you tap them, this tail part bounces around inside the body. Yeah, that could be it. So I'll have to compare that to see whether it's a full number 6. It looks like a number 6 size, so it might be compatible. That's a pretty typical plastic feed we've seen many times. I've never seen this kind of a converter before, with that little extra bit on the end. But, that certainly gives a lot more weight. Oh, that feels very nice. Actually, I'm pleasantly surprised about how that feels. Let's see if it posts. It does not post that deeply, but it is secure. And it makes a very big pen. It doesn't really backweight it too much. But I wouldn't post it. I would write with it like this. So, yeah, you can see how it's almost spray enameled. A little bit of a chip here on the inside of the cap. So, again, an inexpensive pen. This concerns me. And I can't even get that threaded properly. It doesn't feel right. It's sticking right there. And this is what concerns me about some Jinhao pens. Here is a Jinhao 159, and I do love this pen, but I have two of them, because this silver one, the first one I got, the cap is misthreaded, and it takes me a long time to get this one together. So I bought this one instead to replace it, and even it has a little bit of difficulty. You have to find that thread and of course that's plastic on metal, and it cross threads a lot. So I have to be very careful with that. This one feels even worse. It's sticky. Those threads look big, but they're tending to cross thread. Yeah, that's, ooh. Well, I'm going to leave it apart because I don't want to wreck it before I've even tried it. So I think we'll take a look at it. I'll clean it out. We'll get some ink into it, and we'll come back with some size comparisons and some measurements and a writing sample and an interlude in the middle with a little bit of history about the Parker Duofold, and specifically the Parker Duofold Big Red, which this is clearly not. This looks like neon construction cone orange to me. It's not even close to that red color that it looked like in the auction. This does come in different colors, so I did get it back together again. This does come in different colors, and I'll show those right here. So maybe the plain black one would be a good one for this price. Let's see how it writes first, after I've cleaned it out and inked it up. And we'll be back in a second.
That's not the way it feels. Operator, well, could you help me place this call? 'Cause I can't read the number that you just gave me. There's something in my eyes. You know
At the outset, I'd like to admit that I don't own a Parker Duofold or any Parker fountain pen for that matter. What I do know, however, is that I love the look and design of this pen. It is classic in its barrel shape and flat ends. I own a number of Duofold-like pens, 3 Moonman M600s and 3 Kaigaloo 316s. I've never seen any of these brands offer a Duofold look-alike in the classic big red color of the original, however. That's why I decided to give this Jinhao a try. But let's get into the history of the Parker Duofold Big Red. The pen was introduced by the Geo Parker Company in 1921 and was in production until 1933. It was originally made from a hard rubber known as ebonite. When DuPont came up with a new plastic material called celluloid in 1924, rival pen company Schaefer started making plastic pens, and Parker followed suit by making a celluloid Duofold in 1927. The Duofold originally sold for $7, which is a whopping price at the time, and equivalent to about $100 in today's money. The word Duofold can probably be interpreted as twice as big or twice as great, considering the pen was the first oversized pen, and the words manifold and twofold were in the vernacular at the time. The pen really stood out in its Chinese red color, as most pens at the time were black. The Duofold also sported a newfangled button filler filling mechanism. You removed the blind cap and pressed the button, which depressed a lever inside the pen, which squeezed the ink sac. The pen was a wild success for Parker. Through 1933, Parker introduced a plethora of various sizes and models of Duofold, including the Lady Duofold, which had no clip but hung from a lanyard attached to an end cap ring, and a budget-conscious Duofold called the Junior, which sold for $5 instead of the usual $7. Various colors like yellow and swirled green were also introduced, as well as a line of Duofold pencils. Parker reintroduced the Duofold in celebration of its 100th birthday in 1988 by releasing the Parker Duofold Centennial. This was an homage to the original Duofold of the 1920s, except that it was made from acrylic and was a cartridge converter pen. The next year, Parker introduced the Duofold International, which was slightly slimmer. Parker continues to produce the Duofold in various finishes and limited editions. And back to the rest of the pen video.
Okay, here we are back again. I've taken the pen apart and I've cleaned it out. And one thing I've noticed that this generic nib is a number 6 size. It's exactly the same size as a Moonman number 6. Moonman number 6, like that. And the feed is identical to the feeds that you find in Jinhao and in Moonman and so forth. It's that keyed feed that goes on only one way. So you could swap nibs in and out. This nib itself, I think, is a medium. It was never indicated that it was any grade at all. But when I got it inked up and I tried it out, it required quite a lot of smoothing. It required quite a lot of tuning of the tines. They were misaligned quite severely. And I finally got it to the point where it writes, and it writes very wet. And relatively smoothly. But you got to ask yourself on this pen whether it's worth swapping another nib in and out. You generally do that because you like the pen, but you don't like the nib. Well, in this case, I might not like the pen. So anyway, I inked it up with an ink that I've just purchased to replace my dwindling supply of my favorite ink, Konpeki. Now this is $30 for 50 milliliters in Canada, and I'm running about a little less than half on that. So I went and looked for a more budget-minded alternative, and diamine Asa Blue is almost identical. It's just slightly more green than the than the Konpeki, and but it's $15 for 50 milliliters. And you can see from this writing sample here that it has the same kind of red sheen that I love in the Konpeki. So I gave it a try in this pen, filled it up, and we're going to look at a writing sample right now.
Okay, so here we are back again with a writing sample of this Jinhao. Again, I'm going to call it the Jinhao 01 metal, but I'm not even sure of that. The listing on eBay called it Jinhao 01 metal fountain pen, but I've not been able to find any information on that model. There's no branding on this pen whatsoever, and so maybe it's a knockoff of a Jinhao. Wouldn't that be interesting? Anyway, I'm not going to post this pen. It makes it too long and too heavy, but I'm going to call it the Jinhao. '01 metal fountain pen, and I'm going to guess that this is a medium nib. The ink here is diamine or diamine Asa Blue. And as I said, this took quite a bit of smoothing and quite a bit of a adjustment to get it to write, but now it's writing very, very wet indeed. It's very wet writer. And let's listen to it here. There is some spring in that nib, but since it was so misaligned, I'd be worried about springing it. But it does lay down quite a bit of ink. Reverse. So you can get some pretty good reverse writing out of it, and a nice fine line. It's very scratchy this way. It's smoothish with some good feedback. The pen feels comfortable in my hand. The section is very slippery, and those threads, you can really feel that ridge between the threads and the body. There's a bit of a gap there as well. So let's do an evaluation of this pen. Again, my evaluation guide, my categories are build and design, writing and feel, the overall look, and the overall value. Each one of these is out of 4. 0 being an absolute failure, 1 being below average, 2 being average, 3 being good to above average, and 4 being excellent, perfect. So in terms of build and design, well, the design actually comes from the Parker Duofold, of course, and I've got a couple of other pens already that are Parker Duofold lookalikes. And let's see if I can get this to stay. Let me look at my Moonman here. So here's my Moonman Parker Duofold lookalike with a beautiful resin and nice smooth threads, beautiful section, lovely nib now that I've changed it out, and that Parker Arrow clip. I love this pen. It writes beautifully, it's well balanced, and so looking at the Kaigaloo 316, same thing. It's a heavier pen, so it's in this weight range, and it has the same kind of dimensions, lovely medium nib and beautiful resin. This pen was in the $30, $25 to $30 range. Same thing with this, in the $25 to $30 range, and this pen was $13.99. So the design is similar. They borrowed from that classic design, but the construction of this is just really, really poor. And it's even poor for a Jinhao. So that's why I'm thinking it's not a Jinhao. Look at this, actually moves back and forth. When you uncap it, it's very difficult to do, but you push this in, it goes past those threads even before I've turned it. And when you get it aligned, it moves in there. So that's really odd. Plus, just in here, you can see where they didn't even finish it. There's some kind of, the spray enamel missed that section. And speaking of sections, the section is metal and very, very slippery. And so with this rough step here in the slippery section, even though the pen feels nicely balanced in the hand, I just wouldn't want to write with this pen, and the build quality seems very, very poor. So I'm going to give it a below average 1 for that. In terms of writing and feel, again, it didn't write at all right out of the box or the package, and so it took quite a bit of adjustment. And now that I've got writing, it writes very wet and so forth. But again, I'm not going to want to write with this pen. It just doesn't, there's way too much feedback on the page. So I'm going to give it a 2 out of 4 for that. The look, well, you're trying to copy a classic design. I have never held a Parker Duofold Big Red. This is not even close to being a substitute for that classic pen. So if you tried to take this in your pocket or into a meeting or something and fool someone into thinking that you've got a Parker Big Red there, you kind of be laughed out of the room. Whereas a Jinhao 159 is the classic look of a Mont Blanc 159, and it's relatively well built. It feels great in the hand. The nibs are okay, and they're swappable, and it's relatively well built. It does have some cross-threading issues, but this pen is $6, and this one is $13.99. So for $13.99, you can get yourself a Pen BBS 308. You can get yourself a Pen BBS 323. Much better pens. So the overall look, this orange is quite garish. I don't know what it looks like on video. but certainly in the photos online, it looked a lot more like the big red, reddish orange. This is traffic cone orange, and it's garish and it's ugly as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to give it 1 out of 4 for that. Again, as I just said, this pen was $13.99. You say, well, that's relatively cheap. But again, the 159 is only $6 you can get on eBay. So I get 2 of these pens for the price of 1 of these. So I can't say that this is worth buying. And, you know, I wouldn't even give it away, I don't think. So it'll get uninked and stashed away in a drawer somewhere. So I'm going to say 1 out of 4 for value, which gives us 5 out of 16, which is very, very poor. So you live and you learn. You never know. Well, I thank you for watching this little pen exploration, and we'll see you next time. And as always, thank you for watching.